Many people today feel like they are always busy. They work very hard. They wake up early. They try to learn new things quickly. They follow many tips and tricks to be more productive. They believe that if they do more, they will become better people. This idea sounds good on paper. It looks like a clear plan. But in real life, it often feels like running on a treadmill that never stops. It is an endless list of tasks. These tasks promise a better future self, but that self never truly arrives. But here's the hidden truth. What if all this effort is not leading you forward, but trapping you in place? Imagine for a moment that this treadmill stops. What is left? Often, it is not new skills or a feeling of peace. Instead, it is more noise in our minds, more worry, a quiet feeling that we are still not good enough. This is because the idea of enough was often said by someone else, not by us. This feeling, this slow, quiet pain of not truly living your own life is what we want to talk about first. So ask yourself, are you chasing your own dream or someone else's definition of success? Let's think about Anna. Anna is a young woman who wants to be successful and happy. She reads many books about how to be productive. She wakes up at 5 a.m. every day. She listens to podcasts about business and self-improvement while she exercises. She plans every minute of her day. Her calendar is full of meetings, tasks, and goals. She feels very busy, and she tells her friends how much she gets done. But inside, Anna often feels tired and empty. She achieves many things, but she doesn't feel truly happy or fulfilled. She feels like she is always chasing something, but she never catches it. She is always trying to be better, but she never feels good enough. Anna's life is like climbing a ladder. She climbs higher and higher, but sometimes she wonders if the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. She is working hard, but is she working on the right things for her? Here's the scary part. You can win the game of productivity and still lose the game of life. The world tells her to do more, to be faster, to consume more information. But this constant push makes her feel anxious. It makes her feel like she is always behind, always needing to catch up. She has learned many facts and many ways to do things, but she hasn't learned how to feel truly at peace with herself. So what if the real secret to growth isn't another hack or habit, but a story? Now, what if we told you something different? What if the opposite of do more is sometimes read more? Not to learn another quick trick, not to get ahead in your job, but to practice being a human being in a quiet way. What if the most productive thing you could do was to sit still with a novel and let it reshape the way you see yourself? What if the way to become calmer, wiser, and more connected to yourself and others is not always a bullet point on a to-do list? What if it is a line of conversation in a story? Strange, right? That the answers you've been searching for in self-help books might be hiding in the pages of fiction. This idea might feel a little strange. It asks us to slow down. It asks us to be okay with not knowing everything right away. It asks us to let stories that seem to ask nothing from us but our attention, do the important work. This is the work that many quick fix solutions promise but rarely deliver. Stories are not just for fun. They are not just for escaping reality. They are powerful tools. They can help us understand ourselves and the world in a deeper way. They can help us feel more, think more, and choose more wisely. They can help us find our own path instead of just following someone else's list. So here's the challenge. What if the best way to improve isn't to do more, but to understand more? This is the central idea we will explore. What if the best way to improve ourselves isn't to do more, but to understand more, to feel more, and to connect more deeply with the human experience? And what if stories are the best tool for that journey? The real problem is why facts aren't enough. For many years, we have been taught to separate things into two groups: useful and not useful, or just for fun. We are told that facts are useful. For example, knowing how to do math or how to use a computer is useful. But stories, like novels or movies, are often seen as just for fun. They are not seen as useful for our real lives. Practical books, like those about business or money, are supposed to help us earn money, plan our lives, and build things. Novels, on the other hand, are often seen as something to read in the evening, a way to escape from our daily problems. It is true that practical knowledge is important. We need to pay our bills. We need to finish our work projects. We need to manage our relationships with family and friends. These are all important parts of life. But when we think that growing as a person is only about getting more information, we miss something very important. We miss what makes that information truly meaningful. Let's think about this with a simple example. Imagine you want to build a house. You need practical knowledge for this. You need to know about wood, nails, tools, and how to put them together. This is like knowing the what and the how. But building a house is more than just putting pieces together. You also need to know why you are building it. Is it for a family? What kind of life will happen inside this house? This is where stories come in. Stories help us understand the who and the why. Learning how to manage your money, for example, is a very useful skill. You can learn all the rules of budgeting. You can learn how to save money and how to invest. But knowing these facts doesn't automatically teach you how to feel okay when you make a mistake with money. It doesn't teach you how to deal with the feeling of shame if you lose money. Or you can study many ways to get a good job and build a career. But these strategies don't always teach you how to choose a job that truly fits who you are and what you care about deep inside. You can gather many facts, like stacking stones. You can build a house that looks strong and solid from the outside, but inside, you might still feel empty. This happens when the inner parts of you, how you understand your experiences, how you connect with other people, are weak or missing. So the real problem is not knowledge itself. Knowledge is good. The problem is the kind of knowledge we focus on. Practical skills often answer the questions, what should I do and how should I do it? Stories, however, answer the deeper questions, who am I and why am I doing this? They give meaning to facts. They shape the way we see ourselves. And the way we see ourselves changes which facts we notice, which habits we keep, and which choices we think are possible for us. Think about it this way. If your inner story, the story you tell yourself says, I am always behind, then no list of good habits will truly take away that heavy feeling. You might try to wake up earlier, work harder, and do more, but the feeling of being behind will still be there. But a good story, a story you read in a book, can show you another way to see your past. It can open a new path for you to change. It can show you that being behind is just one way to look at things, and there are other ways to understand your journey. Stories help us understand the human side of things. They help us understand feelings, relationships, and the deeper reasons behind our actions. They teach us about courage, fear, love, and loss. These are things that facts and numbers cannot fully explain. When we read stories, we learn about the many different ways people live, think, and feel. This helps us to understand ourselves better and to understand others better. It helps us to build a stronger inner self, a self that is not just full of facts, but also full of wisdom and understanding. This inner strength is the true foundation for a happy and meaningful life. Without it, even the most impressive outer achievements can feel hollow. Now look at the empathy engine, how fiction trains us to be human. Let's think of empathy as a real, practical skill. It is not just a nice idea or a soft feeling. It is a mental ability that you can practice and make stronger, just like a muscle in your body. Scientists who study the mind have a name for this skill. They call it theory of mind. This is the ability to imagine what another person is thinking, feeling, or planning to do. It is the engine that makes human connection possible. It is what allows you to do many important things in life. For example, it helps you to comfort a friend who is sad. It helps you to have an honest conversation with someone you disagree with. It helps you to teach a child something new without making them feel bad. So, if empathy is so important, how can we make this engine stronger? Real life gives us many chances to practice. We have conversations with people, we have disagreements and conflicts, we take care of our family and friends. All of these experiences help us to build our empathy. But there is another way to practice that is very special and surprisingly effective: reading fiction. When you read a novel, you are asked again and again to step into someone else's mind. You are invited to see the world through their eyes. Even in a short part of a story, you have to guess what a character is feeling from small clues. A character might pause before they speak. They might make a small movement with their hands. They might make a choice that seems strange at first. When you read these things, your mind does a little bit of work. You try to understand what these small details mean. These small acts of guessing and understanding are exactly the kind of exercise that makes your empathy muscle stronger. Not all books train this muscle in the same way. Some stories are very simple. The characters are easy to understand. Their reasons for doing things are very clear. The story moves very fast. These kinds of stories can be very enjoyable and satisfying, but they don't make our minds work very hard. It's like a light and easy exercise. Other books, however, are more complex. These are often the books we call literary fiction. In these books, the characters are not so simple. They can be inconsistent. They can have mixed feelings. They can do things that are hard to explain. These are the books that really ask for our attention. They invite us to slow down. They ask us to be comfortable with not knowing everything right away. They encourage us to think of different reasons for why a character does something. Every time you read about a character whose choices confuse you, your brain is doing a quiet experiment. You ask yourself questions like, what could they be feeling right now? What would I do if I were in their situation? What clues in the story support one idea over another? Over time, all of these small experiments change the way you see the real world. Real people are also confusing and complicated. They are not simple. The good habits you learn from reading fiction, paying attention to small details, being willing to change your first opinion, being curious instead of quickly judging, become habits that you can use in your real relationships with real people. There is another important benefit of reading fiction. It gives us a safe place to experience strong emotions. As a reader, you can feel grief or anger, or you can think about a difficult moral problem, all without the real-life consequences. It's like a rehearsal for life. This emotional practice can make you less reactive and more thoughtful when you face similar emotions in your own life or in the lives of others. For example, if you have read a story about a character who has lost someone they love, you might have a better understanding of what a grieving friend is going through. You might be more patient and more compassionate. In short, fiction trains our empathy, and empathy changes how we live our lives. It makes us more understanding, more connected, and more human. Now the story of you, which means rewriting your own life. Beyond making our empathy stronger, stories give us a very important tool. They give us the power to rewrite the stories of our own lives. Human beings are like meaning-making machines. We are always trying to understand our lives and make sense of what happens to us. When we remember our past, we don't just list a series of facts. We arrange these facts into a story. We create scenes. We think about why we did things, and we find themes. We tell ourselves stories like, "I am the kind of person who always fails," or "I am the one who never gives up." These personal stories are very powerful. They shape our feelings, our choices, and our futures. Psychologists have a name for the story you live by. They call it your narrative identity. It is the story you tell yourself about who you are. It is how you connect all the different events of your life into a single, coherent story. It is amazing to think that two people can have the exact same experience, but they can come away with completely different personal stories. This is because they frame the events in different ways. One person might see a job loss as a terrible failure. Another person might see it as an opportunity to find a better path. Fiction is a great teacher because it shows us how this framing process works. It makes it visible. A story can show how a single event can be told as a disaster, or it can be told as a turning point that leads to growth and new understanding. When you read a story and follow a character's journey, you are watching a model of this reframing process. You might see a character who falls down, who makes a mistake, and then learns from it. They rise up again, but they are different. They have a new way of being in the world. This model is very important because it does two things for us. First, it makes us see more possibilities for our own lives. If the hero in the story can change, then why can't we? It opens our minds to the idea that we are not stuck. We can also grow and change. Second, it gives us a new language to talk about our own experiences. We learn not just new facts, but new ways to describe what happened to us. We can learn to say things like, "I didn't fail. That was a chapter of my life where I was learning." Or, "This difficult time was a detour, not the end of the road." Rewriting your own story is not about denying the facts. It is not about pretending that bad things didn't happen. The facts remain the same. You lost the job, the relationship ended, you made a mistake. But rewriting your story is about reinterpreting those facts. It is about looking at them with curiosity and trying to find new meanings. Fiction gives us a lot of practice in doing this. Every time you read about a character who finds strength after a loss, or who finds a new purpose after a failure, you are learning a new template for how to make meaning. Over months and years of reading, these new templates build up inside you, and slowly, the default story you tell about yourself can begin to change. Here is a small exercise you can try. After you read a short story or a chapter of a book, ask yourself this question: how would I describe the main character's turning point in one sentence? For example, you might say, the character realized that true strength is not about never falling, but about getting up every time you fall. Now, think about a recent challenge or turning point in your own life. Try to describe your own experience using a similar sentence structure. The rhythm of the stories we read can teach us a new rhythm for our own self-reflection. It is a very practical and powerful exercise, and it is disguised as the simple pleasure of reading a book. Last one is to understand the self-help trap, a quieter, deeper alternative. Many people are drawn to the self-help industry because it promises quick solutions to complex problems. It often sells the idea that if you just follow a few simple steps, you can transform your life. It tells you that you can be happier, more successful, and more fulfilled. But there are two main problems with much of modern self-help. First, it often focuses on what you lack. It tells you that you are not good enough or that you are missing something essential. This creates a feeling of urgency and anxiety. Second, it often externalizes agency. It suggests that the solution to your problems lies outside of yourself in a book, a guru, or a product. This can lead to a cycle of dependency, where you are always looking for the next quick fix. Contrast this with what fiction offers. Fiction doesn't sell improvement, it demonstrates possibility. It shows processes rather than giving you a simple answer. When you read about a character learning through mistake and repair, you witness a lived practice of change. The lesson is not, do this to get that. The lesson is, here is how a person thought through a hard moment and how gradual choices accumulated into change. Another subtle difference is self-help often focuses on what you should do, while fiction shows you what is. Fiction allows you to explore different ways of being in the world without judgment. It allows you to try on different identities, to see what it feels like to be someone else. This can be a powerful way to learn about yourself and the world around you. This is not to say that all self-help is bad. Some self-help books can be very helpful, but they should be treated as tools, not as the ultimate solution. The real work of growth happens on the inside, and that's where stories are most powerful. They allow us to explore the complexities of human experience, to understand our own motivations, and to find our own unique path to growth. So, what is the true meaning of the phrase, the fictional self? It is not about creating an imaginary version of yourself that denies reality. Instead, it is about cultivating a self that is shaped by curiosity, empathy, and a deep engagement with stories. It is the person who has learned to use stories as tools to reshape their inner narratives, step by step. This kind of growth is slow because it is deep. It does not happen overnight. It moves beneath the surface, beyond the headlines and the quick promises of instant self-improvement. It asks for patience, for careful attention, and for the willingness to sit with uncertainty. But the result is sturdy. A steadier mind, softer judgments, and a stronger sense of who you are, independent of external metrics. If you want to start this journey of self-discovery through stories, begin by picking up a short novel or a collection of stories. Read with the small intention of noticing one new inner detail each day. Pay attention to how a character changes their mind, how they forgive, or how they accept limitation. Notice what that practice does to your own patience. Observe how it changes the stories you tell about your own life. This is not about escaping reality, but about learning to engage with it more deeply and thoughtfully. This is the quiet, powerful work that fiction offers. It helps us to understand ourselves better and to understand others better. It helps us to build a stronger inner self, a self that is not just full of facts, but also full of wisdom and understanding. This inner strength is the true foundation for a happy and meaningful life. By engaging with stories, we learn not just how to live, but how to truly thrive. We learn to embrace the complexity of our own lives and the lives of those around us. We learn to see the world not just as it is, but as it could be. And in doing so, we become more fully human. The journey of self-discovery is an ongoing one, and stories are powerful companions on that path. So here's the final question. Which story will you choose to live by? The endless chase for more, or the deeper journey of becoming fully human? Do not forget to post your view in the comments section.